Dear friends, welcome to Selah Times, and it's our privilege to connect again. I want to start with a story. Exasperated by the naughtiness, this father had had enough of the twin boys, so they decided to put them into a hostel. So they took the twin boys, very active, full of energy. So they took them to this particular hostel, which was run by a Catholic order. And as these nervous little boys entered the building, they saw a crucifix. And they saw that the figure on the cross was nailed to the cross. There was blood on the body in this figure. So the father overheard one boy asking the other, "Oh, this is scary. What is this?" And the other boy said, "Maybe in this hostel, if you don't study well, they put you on the cross and do like this." And the father did not want to correct them. And funny as it is, the cross is a symbol of love, much love. It is true. A lot of love. Cross is a story of love. You know, in John chapter 17 and verse 23, I will read that for you. Maybe we will read this together. "I in them and you in me, so that they may be brought to complete unity. Then the world will know that you sent me and have loved them even as you have loved me." That you have loved them even as you have loved me. A phenomenal statement, a statement loaded with meaning, a weighty statement. In fact, this is the Lord's Prayer. Isn't that true? John chapter 17, it's a long prayer. It is the Lord's Prayer. We call our Father who art in heaven as the Lord's Prayer, but it is truly the disciples' prayer, because Jesus could never have prayed, "Forgive my trespasses as I forgive those who trespass against me," because he was the true sinless one. There was no blemish in him, and therefore he could never ask for forgiveness. He was the only one. He is the only one. And here in the true Lord's Prayer, he says, "You have loved them even as you have loved me." I have gone through this passage so many times, but then, it was at one moment that the weight of this statement hit me. Excuse me, is that true? You love them even as you have loved me. Jesus talking to the Father, praying to the Father. Three persons in one Godhead. It is something that you and I will never be able to wrap our heads around. We will never grasp on this side of eternity. But then this verse is remarkable. The word love, it is agapisas in Greek. It is something that I don't know how to pronounce it, but the root word is agape. That is the kind of love and that you have had on them just as you have loved me, O Father. It would have been okay to say, you feel pity for them, or you are compassionate on them, you accept them, you tolerate them, you like them. But to say that you have loved them even as you have loved me. Oh, that is a bit too much, oh Lord. It is a weighty statement. Well, there are, in that case, John 3:16 takes on a totally new meaning. God so loved the world. There are examples of intimacy and love in the Bible. We know that. Adam and Eve, they walked with God in the coolness of the evening, it says, and they communed with God till the great fall. There was Abraham, the father of faith, who was called the friend of God. Enoch, he walked with God for 300 years after the first 65 years, after Methuselah was born, and there was communion. There was a love walk. So much so that one day God told him, Enoch, you've come too far, let's go. And God took him, it says. David, man with blemishes, but a man after God's own heart. And there was a love walk as he composed his songs, played worship music, which we even use it to this day. And what a beautiful example, such beautiful examples of so much of intimacy. Let's look at 3 examples from the New Testament of objects of God's love. People being objects of God's love. So much of love, much loved. You know, in John chapter 11 and verse 3, Jesus gets a telegram. These days, people don't know what a telegram means. Or maybe we should say, he gets a WhatsApp message. What does that message say? It says, it is from the sisters, Martha and Mary. Verse 3 in John chapter 11. It says, so the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Lord, the one you love is sick. Well, there was no need to say it is, we are talking about Lazarus and all that, because everyone knew that when the letter came, or maybe somebody carried this word from Bethany, there was, it was about Lazarus. And when Jesus arrives in Bethany, 4 days late and yet on time, it was on Kairos time, or the appointed time, he reaches there. Both the sisters, they exclaim, Martha and Mary, in that order. They say, Lord, if you had been there, Lazarus would not have died. With so much of anguish of heart and tears, through tear-filled eyes, they look at Jesus and they say these words, Lord, if you had been there. Verse 35, the shortest verse in the Bible, Jesus wept. If you are asked to memorize a verse, say John 11:35, Jesus wept. And verse 36, the Jews, what do they say? The Jews said, see how he loved him. Look, see how he loved him. This is about Lazarus, how he loved him. It's a love story. It's a love story. Deeply loved. Lazarus was deeply loved by Jesus. He was recipient of much love. Martha and Mary were recipients of much love too. Why was that? What made Lazarus to be that person who received much love from Jesus, from the Creator of the universe? Friendship with the Creator of the universe. It says, through him were all things made. Without him, nothing was made that has been made. And it is the Creator God who stretched out the heavens and the earth. Friendship and love, relationship with him. Why so, Mr. Lazarus? If you went to him and you asked him, Lazarus, what made you to be that object of love? What would he say? Extraordinary talent? Probably not. There is no indication, no mention of that at all, any of that. Lazarus died young, didn't he? And was he sickly? Maybe he was. and his two sisters, doting sisters. They were there, and they were in this little home outside of Jerusalem, Bethany. Jerusalem was the city where the bold and the beautiful, the rich and the famous, the religious and the learned, they would be there within the city walls, and Bethany was outside. So it was not a glamorous place, a little home probably. And maybe one day, Martha and Mary, they opened their home to Jesus. Well, looking after Jesus as a guest was not an easy thing, because Jesus came with his entourage. Isn't that true? 12 disciples. All of them ate well, I'm sure. And they were young, they were energetic, they were tired, they were hungry, and there were some women also along with them. So it was a big deal. Maybe they had to enroll some of the neighbors also to host this big caravan. So it was not an easy thing. But they did that. They knew that there was something about Jesus. Martha was probably the leader. We see that she was a hard-working woman, worked very hard to make the master feel comfortable. We see that. Mary, she worked hard too, I'm sure, but then she also grabbed every opportunity to sit at the master's feet. And like a sponge, she absorbed every word that came from the master's mouth, because she knew that there was something, a transforming power in his words when applied onto the heart. And this was the family. Maybe Lazarus was also like that. We don't know too much about that. But there was this time when he was sick. Your friend Lazarus is sick. Dear one, you are an object of love. Much love. Welcome him into your home, into your heart. There is a depth in that love, not superficial. Lazarus was recipient of much love. He was also a person in whom one of the greatest miracles at that time was shown, manifest. And he became a powerful testimony and a witness. Hey, Lazarus, are you the one? Did you die? Yes, I did. I was sick. How many days? They tell me it was 4 days. They tell me I was probably stinking, my body, that is. But my life came back. My soul returned. I heard that command, Lazarus, come out. And I had to be unwound, untied. That is true. That is true. So much so, in the next chapter, in chapter 12, the religious leaders said, no use killing Jesus alone. We have to get rid of Lazarus also. Lazarus was a recipient of much love. Let's look at the next example. John, the beloved disciple. John, the beloved disciple. One shining example of someone who basked in the glorious love of Jesus Christ was John, the disciple. In King James Version, John chapter 13 and verse 23, there it says, now there was leaning on Jesus' bosom one of his disciples, whom Jesus loved. Wow, what a statement to make. He himself is writing because he was so sure, he was so assured of Jesus' love for him. A true recipient of much love. In the NIV translation, the word Jesus' bosom is left out, and that may not be accurate to leave that out, but the word in Greek was for Jesus' bosom is Jesus' kolpos, or his breast, his bosom, his side, his chest. And during the Last Supper, and John had the privilege of leaning on to Jesus' bosom. What a privilege to enjoy that intimacy. God offers that intimacy to you and to me. The same John addresses himself as the beloved disciple. Dear friends, is that true? John 21, verse 20, it says, Then Peter, turning around, saw the disciple whom Jesus loved following, who also had leaned on his breast at the supper, and said, Lord, who is the one who betrays you? There is a conversation, maybe a whisper which is going on. Again, John addresses himself as the one Jesus loved, a disciple whom Jesus loved. Wow. What a statement to make. What an assurance to have, to hold on to. John remembered that event when he leaned onto the bosom of Jesus. Dear friend, there is place for you in Jesus' heart, on Jesus' bosom. There is place. Dear child of God, there is place for you to lean on to Him. In 1 John chapter 3 and verse 1, again, it's the same beloved disciple who is penning it. And much later, in KJV, in King James Version, it says, Behold, what manner of love the Father has bestowed upon us, that we should be called the sons of God. Behold, behold. I remember being deeply touched by this verse. There was a lady preacher who had come to our little town. She was holding some revival meetings, and she used this verse as her text. Behold, what manner of love. Behold, what manner of love. Behold is see, gaze, pay attention, look, all rolled into one. You don't, the old English sometimes is a little more powerful than the newer words that we have invented. You don't go to your friends and say in the morning, Behold, I'm here. Or behold, it's a new day. No, it is an imperative. Look, pay attention. What manner of love God has bestowed on us. Bestowed, not earned. He has lavished on us generously. There is an extravagance in that love, in that word. Really? Children, to be sons and daughters. Is that true? Yes, it is true, unless the word of God is false and a lie. And we know it is not a make-believe, a fairy tale, just like those stories which make the little children sleep better, to calm down, something like they lived happily ever after. Somebody said it's better to use happily even after. But then, jokes aside, in children's stories, we read that, no, it's not true. But here, it is true. This is true. On the 7th December 1988, a powerful earthquake struck Armenia. That was the year I started working. So it was all over the papers at that time. A powerful earthquake struck Armenia. Armenia is a landlocked country, and to the west is Turkey, and to the east is Azerbaijan, and to the north it is Russia and Georgia and Russia, and to the south it is Iran. It's a landlocked country in the European continent. So on that day, within 4 minutes, between 25,000 to 50,000 people perished, because the earthquake struck around 11 o'clock in the morning, and it was 6.8 on the Richter scale. It was devastation, devastation. And, it just lasted for 4 minutes. In a small town in Armenia, there was one little place, a school building which was flattened, totally flattened. A father, his name was Samuel, he was very distraught. He came, he ran, he saw that the entire building was flat. They searched for children. There were hardly anyone alive. And people, tried removing some rubble. There were aftershocks. So people started moving back. There were condolences. People said, yes, we have to accept the reality of what has happened. But this father Samuel never gave up. He started digging. Even when others went away, he just started taking out the stones and the planks and everything. And after some time, people said, hey, it's already 12 hours, 16 hours, 20 hours, 24 hours. Come on, you have to accept reality. We know it's difficult. But he said, no, my son is there. And he kept working 36 hours and he wouldn't give up. His body was in absolute shambles. He was broken in heart, in mind, in spirit, in his body. He was exhausted, but still he continued to work and remove rubble. And after 38 hours, when he moved a plank, he heard a noise, a sound of his son, weak, enfeebled. And it said, Hyrik is father or daddy in that language. And, feverishly others joined in also. And then as the 14 children were preserved, they were weakened, but they were safe. An air pocket in the rubble had saved them. It was God's grace. And, as this boy came out, they hugged as others watched. And the little boy said, Daddy, I knew you will come. I knew you would come, because you remember that day you said, wherever you are, Armand, I will be there for you. So I told my friends, don't worry, my daddy will come. His Hyrik had come. Beautiful example of parental love. Broken and imperfect as we are, we know how to show love for our children. But the Father in heaven who has the perfect love, Jesus said in John 14 and verse 3, and if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come back and take you to be with me, that you also may be where I am. Dear friend, do you believe him? If you believe him, then you will believe in his word. The third example is about the woman who loved much. In fact, Dr. Luke, who wrote this gospel, addresses her as the sinful woman. In Mark chapter 14, there is another reference to another episode of alabaster jar being broken. That is, that was in Bethany. But this was in Luke chapter 7, in the beginning of his ministry. And Luke chapter 7 verses 36 to 38. Then one of the Pharisees invited Jesus to have dinner with him. He went to the Pharisee's house and reclined at the table. A woman in that town who lived a sinful life learned that Jesus was eating at the Pharisee's house. So she came there with an alabaster jar of perfume. And as she stood behind him at his feet weeping, she began to wet his feet with her tears. Then she wiped them with her hair, kissed them, and poured perfume on them. Verse 47, fast forward, it says, therefore I tell you, her sins, which are many, are forgiven, for she loved much. But he who is forgiven little loves little. Therefore I tell you, her many sins have been forgiven, as her great love has shown. Whoever has been forgiven little loves little. She loved much because she was forgiven much, because she realized, the weight of her sin. You and I, when we realize the weight of our sin, we love much because He loves much. Isn't that true? We love Him because He first loved us. In Isaiah, when he realized his sin, he said, "Woe unto me." Peter, in Luke 5 and verse 8, he says, Simon Peter, he fell at Jesus' knees and said, "Go away from me, Lord, I am a sinful man." I would also dare say this woman was an object of Jesus' love. He loved her deeply. 1 John 4 verse 19 says, "We love because He first loved us." Romans 5:8 says, "But God demonstrated His love for us. While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us." You see, at the right time when we were still powerless, Christ died for the ungodly. That is the kairon, the right time He loved. Ephesians 3 verse 18, Paul says, "I pray that you will understand, together with all the Lord's holy people, that you will grasp how wide, how long, how high, how deep is the love of Christ." How wide, including everyone, including even the thief on the cross. Do you feel that you are in the periphery of God's love? It's wide enough. How long? It's not short-lived. How high? It is beyond understanding. How deep? It is not skin deep. It is not superficial. Deep enough to pierce through. You are deeply loved. When I survey the wondrous cross, love so amazing, so divine, demands my soul, my life, my all. How much love? Children measure it, isn't it? This much love. I love my sister this much, my daddy this much, my mother this much. Jesus, how much do you love? And He stretched out His hand on the cross.